Gridiron.
Shut your mouth podcasting.
Yards, touchdowns.
Shut your mouth podcasting. First round draft pick. Believe we got stats, kid. Quarterback sacking. 100-yard dashing. So tap in for the action.
Welcome to the Sim Podcast Show. I'm your co-host Eric, and I'm always joined by my co-host Ron. What up, Ron?
What's going on?
You know what we do? We talk about the National Football League on a weekly basis, including the playoffs. Ron, we just had week number 8. We're moving on to week 9. Steelers, Monday night. How are you feeling? How are you feeling about this team? I think you're in first place, right?
First place on top of the AFC North. Players getting healthy. No major injuries. No injuries, I don't think, from this last game. So, and now we got a bye week on top of it. So I feel great. Relaxed. I don't have to stress at all this week. I think I just feel, comfortable where we're at. Kind of expected us to be like 6-2, 5-3, I think is what I have projected. So things are going according to plan so far.
I mean, 6-2, you got to be pretty happy with that record.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even, have you had a divisional game yet?
Not yet.
And I think the Ravens are purposely ramping up, and we'll talk about that in the NFL news. The Patriots actually won, and we'll talk about it when we do our recap. But first, we always start with the NFL news. Ron, ex-Steelers, Deontay Johnson to the Ravens. How do you feel? Do you think they needed another receiver? I thought they had a good tight end, a good running back, and pretty good receiver in Safe Flowers. So why did they go out and get Deontay Johnson?
I think they needed another weapon for sure for Lamar. Just based on what happened in the last game, right? Lamar had a throw. I forgot who it was. It just bounced off his chest. He is a great player, but he's not enough. They needed somebody on the other side. Last year, I think they were relying a little bit on Odell Beckham Jr. I think he gave them a little bit, not as much as I think that they wanted. But Deontay, I think, is going to be. I think it's going to be definitely helpful for that offense to have that second, third option to go to. But I think the problem with Baltimore, regardless, is their defense. Their defense has just been terrible. So they got to fix that side of the ball for them to really, have a strong chance in the playoffs to make a run.
That's why, to me, it's kind of a head scratcher, because I didn't think that the offense was bad this year. Yes, I mean, sometimes there were some receivers that had Hulk hands, I guess. But I thought that overall the offense, a couple of games, it scored 30 points. I was like, okay. The defense, though, like you mentioned, does need some help. And I know they lost a coordinator to Seattle, but you basically have the same players, right?
Yeah. For the most part, they're just not playing to their potential. Their run defense, their pass defense, they had a chance to make a play at the end of the game to seal the win. They couldn't, drop the interception by one of their best players, on defense, Hamilton. They have not stepped up this season and played to their potential. So they need to fix that side of the ball for sure, for them to really have a legitimate Super Bowl, chance.
Yeah, because we know that Kansas City, it's not so much that their defense is bad, it's that the offense is not producing like it should. So let's bolster up the defense. I don't know. I'm gonna see how much production he has for the rest of the year for the other set of news, Ron. Stephon Diggs out for the year, ACL. How much of an effect did you think you have on the Texans offense?
I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be quite honest with you.
No Nico Collins, right? I don't think he's back.
I think that's a bigger deal. But Nico is going to be back at some point. So it's a big deal for the short term. I think once he comes back, it's a non-issue. Diggs, for whatever reason, I don't know if they were getting what they expected with him on the field this year. And I'm not saying it's Diggs' fault. There just seems to be something missing. Now they got a running game, so maybe that helps out a little bit. But I don't necessarily see it as a huge loss. They got tons of other receivers. Once Nico comes back, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, Mixon is there, right? So they have some type of running game. I think the fact that they were like relying too much on Stroud, I think. Mm-hmm. But now, they can get back to, the AFC South is not exactly a dominant, right? Take the Jaguars out of it, you take the Titans out of it. You really have the Colts, and the Colts, we're going to talk about them shortly. They might be a mess as well too. So it's not like you can. I mean, what I'm saying is that you can be flexible in that division. You can lose a couple of games and still win that division.
Yeah, I think so. They haven't played their best for sure. There's lots of, I think there's lots of room for them to improve on the offensive side of the ball. But I honestly think it'll come. I just think they just haven't gelled for whatever reason as yet. So, once Nico gets back, I think they'll figure it out. And it might take like another 2-3 weeks to get there. But as long as you get there when the playoff starts, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a big drop off without Stefan. I think he was on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned, the other set of news is...
Before you get to that, I forgot one other trade that happened earlier this week. It's Uche to Kansas City. I don't understand why they only got, what was it, a 6th-round pick for him?
6th-round pick, yep.
That seems like they should have gotten a lot more. And I know you and I talked about this and how he's the specialist, a sack specialist or whatever. That is where the league is going to now. Like every position, the NFL is just turning to specialists, like certain scenarios that, these are the guys that you put in. There's not a lot of teams that still do, okay, you play every single down. This is your role. Even Tomlin, he's a stickler for old school, but he does a lot of rotation. People just don't realize with his linebackers. So I thought Patriots should have got a lot more for him, and good for Kansas City. Defense was not a problem for them, but they said we're not just going to sit back. We're going to even get better on defense. So I think Uche is a huge trade for them.
Well, he wasn't going to succeed at New England when you're playing from behind all the time. Because if your offense sucks, your sack specialist going to suck. And a lot of the times what would happen is, this year in particular, New England never had the lead. So the other teams were running the ball because they had a lead to protect, which basically made Uche unusable. And I know he just signed an extension this summer. I think it was 2 years or 3 years. Really cheap, like $3 million a year. So he might get another extension from Kansas City, I guess, based on his performance. I just thought, hey, if we got rid of Judon, got rid of Uche, I am not mad at them. Just collect the trap. Because now what? Jalen Polk not really turning out as he said he would. Baker can't even get on the field. I think he was a healthy scratch off. And
he played this week though, right? I think he was active for the first time.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I mean, I know that Drake May entered that concussion protocol, so I don't think he's gonna be available this time. But that's when we do the recap. But Ron Richardson got the bench from the Colts, the benching from the Colts. I mean, is it because he was so terrible, or is it because he took plays off to quote unquote rest?
Took himself out of the game. Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. He was pathetic. He just, I mean, I don't understand what the Colts expected. I think everyone knew when he was drafted that he was a project. It doesn't mean you should not have picked him in the first round, but what it does mean is if you're picking him in the first round, you need to have a plan to get you through the next 2-3 years until, you know, he's ready. And I don't think they were patient enough. They kind of just threw him in last year just based on his athletic ability, his arm strength. He can wow you just by his size and speed and what he can do and all that stuff, but he's raw. And, you know, what happened this past Sunday with him checking himself out for being tired, that, you know, that's just a maturity issue. I'm not going to kill him for that. He's 22. You can't do that. I think he'll learn, hopefully, from that. But, you know, I think it's the right move for them to move him back to the bench, especially when you got someone like Flacco there. You know, it never made sense to not play him, you know. So, you know, teams, for whatever reason, saw this with the Browns last year too, right? They had Deshaun Watson. Flacco outplayed him, and they were like, no, we can't have this around. Let me get rid of you. And I think the Colts try to do the same thing, but they're winning enough to still be in contention, and they know they don't want the season to go down because they were too scared to make the move.
So is this because obviously Richardson is not ready?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the Colts should have known this and just been like, okay, let's get a veteran, kind of similar like what happened with New England, where they got a veteran.
Yeah.
They say, we're going to go with the veteran, and then when you're ready, we'll put the rookie. But I think that when you have the carriage before the horse, this is what's going to happen. And I hope that down the line, it doesn't hurt his psyche where he's like, oh, am I good enough? He starts questioning himself. Because that's what happens when you're in and out, right? You're like, oh, am I not good enough? That's why I'm being benched and all that. But there's other reasons for that benching. I just like, hey, he's on the 5-year rookie contract. You can do whatever you want. You have 5 years. I think this is his second year now. So I never bought any stock into Richardson, but if they develop him right, he could be a weapon. He could be Cam Newton type, but 44% is his QBR rating. Completion rate, sorry.
It's terrible. It's unacceptable. And you know, it shows there was no growth at all from last year, and I don't understand why there isn't. Like, every player should see some improvement, you know, especially if you're not changing coaches or coordinators or any of that. So there's no excuse for that. He's just not getting developed. But you know, this is what, number one, it starts at the top. I think it starts at the ownership level. It's the owners that drives this, right? They're like, oh, give me this shiny toy. I want this person to sell tickets or whatever the case might be. And then they're like, oh, let's make sure they play, even though the guy's not ready. So I blame the folks all the way at the top for this, not just the coaching staff. But the second thing is, like, I think teams, when they're evaluating quarterbacks, you cannot, you know, get so enamored with the, oh, look at his size. Oh, look how fast he runs. Oh, look how much he benches, you know. Can the guy throw? You know, can he call a play in the huddle? Can he take a snap under center? Can he go through his reads, right? Those are the things you need to look at. If you're just strictly looking at how they're built, that's how you end up with like a situation with Richardson, right? That's how you end up with like a Malik Willis, for example. You know, it's going to happen again with the guy from Alabama, Milroe. You know, he's a huge guy, can run, big arm. The same thing, you know, he's just raw. And if you're expecting, okay, this guy's going to come in and take my team because he's so talented, then that's just stupid. And, you know, those people should not be GM.
Yeah, that's just, again, front office, just because you work in the front office doesn't mean that you're a smart person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Just means that you have a job. Are you good at your job? That's where you separate yourself. Ron, let's talk about week number 8. And I want to start out by saying that you have a 2-point lead, 75-73.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to go back and forth. And I welcome the competition.
Listen, it's not going back. I made the decision to go from now on with my gut.
Oh, what were you doing before?
I think I was like more so, okay, here's where I see this team at the end of the season. I think, they're going to be in the playoffs.
You were projecting what I told you not to do.
To get to the playoffs, they got to win this game, blah, blah, blah. No, it just needs to go with like my gut. Not every favorite is going to win the game, right? There's going to be lots of underdogs, and you'll see that when we go through our picks for week 9. I chose a lot of underdogs, and that's just because it's just a gut feeling. So that's going to be my strategy going forward. I think, looking back at week 8, there was some games I'm like, man, I should have called that. I should have called Cleveland beating Baltimore. Why did I not choose that? Jameis Winston is a good quarterback. That defense is pretty decent. Chubb is back. Why didn't I choose that? I think I did pretty well, but I think I could have done even better. So you're not catching me, is what I'm saying.
Well, let me just say that this year, if I'm looking at what the record for underdog this year, 13-2 is underdog's record. So, I was thinking like, oh, maybe this is like the correction, but it's not yet. It's too early in the season. So underdogs still have a chance because there's a lot of teams that haven't gotten their shit together. So yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. The upset special, you actually hit on the upset special. Who was the upset special?
I went to the Minnesota Rams game, right? So Minnesota was favored by 3.5, I think it was. I had the Rams winning 26-24. The final score was 30-20. And that's kind of like the point I was making. Like, Minnesota's a good team, yes. Sam Darnold's played well, yes. They have a decent running game now. But Stafford is a future Hall of Fame quarterback. They had Kyren Williams. They have their receivers back. That offense can score. And yes, Minnesota's defense has been great. But I just had a hunch that the season's not over for the Rams, despite their issues on defense. I don't think you can write the Rams off just yet. I think they got a lot of talent on that team, especially on offense, and then with Stafford leading them, they're going to play spoilers to a lot of really good teams.
And we didn't write them off because we were like, that NFC West division is still anybody's division, right? We thought that anybody can win that division. And when I watched that game, it's not like their LA Ram defense is terrible. It was okay. They have a couple of rookies from Florida State being one of them, and they did a pretty decent job. There wasn't a lot of rookie mistakes on that team. So I'm more concerned about Sam Darnold, and is he turning into a pumpkin? Like, is this as far as he can take being on a good team? That's my concern when I was watching the game, because he looked great and then he looked awful sometimes, and I was just like, I don't know how. The fact that they don't have JJ McCarthy on that team helps them, but I don't trust that doing.
Darnold?
Yeah, I don't trust. I think Minnesota, they had a hot hand with him, and I think that hot hand is going away.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that's the case at all. I thought he played okay. I don't think he was necessarily the problem. The problem is like it's hard to win, you know, in the NFL. I don't care who you play, it's hard to win. And you got to be consistent. And it can take like the smallest play or two or three to cost you, you know, a win. And that's all it took, I think, in this game. There was just a couple throws that weren't made. The running game was not effective at all. Just looking at these stats, 19 for 58 for Aaron Jones. That's not getting it done, right? And then your receiver number 2 caught 2 passes. That's it. You know, Jefferson did good, 8 for 115, didn't get in the end zone. But, you know, you got to have another weapon. And they got talent. It's not like they don't have receivers. Jordan Addison's a good weapon. But like I said, you know, I think it just takes a lot to win in the NFL. And any given Sunday, anyone can beat anyone. And I don't think it's Sam Darnold's fault. I think he's played well. I just think teams will start to come down to earth, and you'll see some teams that you should expect to win. You'll have some losses.
So you think that Sam Darnold played a good game? Like, because you have weapons. Okay. You have Justin Jefferson. You have Addison. I think they were expecting for Haxton to come back, but he wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like, you know, kind of like Chicago, you have the weapons. Yeah, I feel like I'm looking at his stats now, 240, no interceptions, 25 times he threw it. I can't trust him compared to Stafford, who threw it 34 times, 4 touchdowns. He has 1 pick, but Stafford, he's not going to get down on interceptions. He's going to keep chucking it. So my question to you is Sam Darnold trustworthy?
I think so. I think he can get you into the playoffs, maybe even win a playoff game. I don't think he's the problem, but like I said, it's not easy to win a game. Everything has to come together. You have to have a good running game. You have to have a good passing. You can't make mistakes. You can't have a lot of penalties. You know, and listen, there's going to be teams that are, just things are going well. Rams, in their case, they got everybody back, healthy. And that's the team you ran into. So you took your loss there. Vikings going to have some more losses down the road for sure. They're not going undefeated from here on out. So, but I think they'll be fine with Sam Darnold.
My upset special was Dallas at San Francisco. I had Dallas upsetting San Francisco. In full disclosure, I didn't watch the entire game because I was just like, too tired. But when I switched it off at halftime, they were winning. So explain to me what happened, Ron. Why? When I looked at the final score, it was a loss. Because when I looked at the highlights, was it really Dak was that awful?
I don't think it's ever necessarily been all on Dak Prescott. He's doing everything himself. That's the problem. 56 yards rushing total is not acceptable. Elliott, Cook, it doesn't matter who they got back there. You got to have a running game, right? You got to have some sort of balance. You got to be able to run the ball from time to time. So did he play the perfect game? No. But I don't think any quarterback in the NFL at this stage, even Mahomes, can just go out there and throw it like 50 times, 40 times every single weekend and win consistently without having a running game.
Running game.
Yeah. I didn't really watch too much of this game either. I know, like you said, Dallas had the lead, but that third quarter, San Fran went off for 21. So their defense, Dallas's defense, didn't show up, but they were down Lawrence and what's his face too, right? So Dallas is missing pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Hopefully they get them back in this week or next week. So,
I mean, when you give up 223 yards rushing, you basically have no.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this was the last time that I ever picked Dallas. You know how I had the
I feel
Browns?
like you say this all the time.
Well, you know how I had blacklisted Cleveland Browns?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're being lifted, and now it's on the Dallas Cowboys. I just think that they're not gonna make the playoffs. Let's be honest. Because I think the Eagles have found kind of like a groove, but we'll see. And obviously the Commanders will talk about it. So Ron, this weekend doesn't happen often. Both of our teams won. It doesn't happen often because Patriots are so bad. But let's start with the New England Patriots because we both picked them to win against the Jets, right?
To lose. We picked them to lose.
No, we picked them to lose. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I want to just say that after the Jets used all their timeouts in the first quarter, I texted the group and said, "This Jets team is a mess."
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it was that or it was the fact that every time the camera turned to Aaron Rodgers, he looked confused. I don't know. I just feel like anybody could beat the Jets. Anybody.
Dysfunction. This is what dysfunction looks like. You look up the word in the dictionary, you see the Jets. Basically what's going on. You mean Rodgers got his coach fired? You know, you move somebody in who's not used to being a leader, right? As a head coach, and now you're struggling on defense, struggling still on offense. You haven't clicked yet. This is what you get.
Yeah, and I saw the stat that they had
Amazon fall favorites are here.
they hadn't won
Save on
they hadn't won at home, the Patriots, in like almost a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes to show you how bad the New York Jets were, who actually allowed a victory for the Patriots. So are Jets now the worst team in the AFC East? Or is it still New England?
Well, it depends on how you ask it. If you're talking about the roster, it's New England. If you talk about like the coaching and everything else, the culture, it's the Jets. That's how I look at it. Listen, New England in this game, they managed to win. Unfortunate to see Drake May go down. I wanted to see him play the entire game. I thought he was going to have a good game. I hope he comes back this week. I'm projecting him to have a really good game. But at the same time, you still don't have a running game, right? Drake May left the game. When did he leave?
I think the first quarter. Or end of the quarter. He had 46 yards rushing.
Yeah, he still almost led the team in yards. I mean, Stevenson had 48 on 20 carries. May had 46 on 3 and a touchdown. So they got to get more out of their running game from their running back specifically. But you saw, I think, from Drake what he can do with his legs. I mean, he's always been an athlete. I wanted to see the rest of the game with him playing, to see him take the next step with his arm. Because I do think he makes these receivers better, or he can. Whereas Brissett, I don't know, what you're going to get out of him from week in and week out. Not to say he played horrible or anything, coming in, but I think if you have any hope for your receivers, for them to be good, I think you need May to play.
not only that, but Brissett is a placeholder, right? It's not like even if he wins against the Titans, he's still just a placeholder. He's not gonna get an extension. You know, you just take it with a grain of salt. If he has a decent game, and I'm looking at the stats now, and I mean 132 yards is not gonna blow you off, you know, off the stat sheet. And he had no touchdowns, no interceptions. He basically just did enough for the Patriots to win. So, and this is the thing is like, you know, we were talking before we started recording. Now Drake Maye's in the concussion protocol, so who knows if he'll be available next week against the Titans. We'll wait for the injury report to come out tomorrow, but still, it's like now you're losing your best player for how many weeks now? Like,
yeah, on a freaky hit too. You know, he did the right thing by sliding. It just, you know, he just took a hit as he was going down, and that's all it took. I saw it when it was live. I was like, oh man, that was kind of a hard shot. Not a hard shot, more of like being hit in the wrong spot, you know. And you know, I knew after that, once he took a little bit, it was a little bit hesitation getting up. I was like, okay, he's not all right. But I think he played for a little bit, and then they took him out right after that. And I was like, okay, no sense in me watching this game, because the only reason I was watching was to see how he did. So I kind of like flipped the channel at that point.
Well, the thing is, like, you know, when you're basically giving yourself up, there's no need for the defensive player to lose out. Like, why was?
But I don't know. I don't think he was lying. He was just going. He was.
No, he launched himself. That's why it was helmet to helmet.
He waited a long time to slide. As a defender, you got to try to make the tackle, right? So you can't hold up if you're going to make a tackle, and the guy that you're chasing waits till the last second. You know, those are accidents that happen. Can't believe the defender. You know, he's trying to make a play. Probably thinks May is still running, and he probably by the time you see May slide, it's too late. His body's moving full speed, and it just so happened like he went head first, and you know, hit May in the head. So I don't think necessarily there's anything you can do, you know, about those type of freakish plays, because I don't think he did it on purpose. I think you need to teach the quarterbacks to make sure you give yourself up a little bit earlier and make sure you have the timing down of when you need to slide, because in the NFL, everyone runs fast. This ain't college. May will figure that out. Guys, 300 pounds can outrun him in some cases. So he's got to learn to like slide earlier.
I don't know. I think I don't say that. I didn't say that the play was dirty, but it could have been I'm not saying that. And May doesn't have eyes in the back of his helmet, so he doesn't know the dude's coming.
He knew. He knew the guy was there. The guy was like,
there was another guy that was in front.
Yeah, this guy in front, the guy direct, like to the side. He knew the guy was catching him. And you know, it's just like a freak thing. You know, bang bang play, just wrong part of the body hit. It should have been a flag, maybe. By the letter of the law, it is. Everything could be a flag by the letter of the law. So.
Yeah, I mean, even the ref asked him if he was okay, because
that should have been
helmet to helmet. Helmet to helmet are not allowed by the letter of the law. They're not allowed, and that was a helmet to helmet. So they should have been a flag. There wasn't. But needless to say, they won a game at home, and the streak continues. Now it's 24 years and counting that the Jets haven't swept a season series with the Patriots. So I love it. So good for me.
One thing I gotta say before we go on is like, we gotta NFL, not just we, gotta start giving Christian Gonzalez his praise. I think he is arguably one of the top 3 defenders in the league right now. If you just look at his numbers and what he does, like against the top receivers that go against them, he like shuts them down every single week. And I think, you know, the NFL needs to give that dude some praise.
I think he'll get the praise once Patriots start winning.
Mhm.
Because really, that's all it comes down to. Nobody notices you until your team starts winning.
Mhm.
Like, look at Stephon Gilmore. Nobody noticed him until he actually started winning Super Bowls with
Yeah.
the Patriots. And then
Yeah.
people were like, oh, Stephon Gilmore is pretty good. And Bill Belichick goes, yeah, that's why we snatched him from the Bills. Because
Right.
So I know he's in the rookie contract, so it's going to be a couple of years. He may get an extension, who knows? But, I don't think he's going to be noticed until it's too late. I mean, the fans are going to tweet, hey, so-and-so receiver only made this many catches, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's going to look at that because why? The Patriots are now winning. So, listen, don't get rid of Gonzalez because he's actually a pretty good corner.
Mhm.
And I do see him making the Pro Bowl this year.
Oh, for sure.
Let's talk about your Steelers, Ron. They beat the Giants last night, Monday Night Football. But when we were watching the game, there was a lot of field goals. Why? Why so many field goals? Why not punch it in?
Yeah, this should have been a blowout. I mean, penalties. The one ticky tack and hands to the face took away a touchdown, which again by letter law it was. Russell rolled out, and Broderick Jones just happened to have his hands in the wrong position and got him on the face mask for like a half a second, but it was enough to get a flag. And then the other Pickens touchdown,
helped out.
he didn't get
a
both
free
feet
release and it's getting into the route.
inbounds.
But based on what he was doing,
Right foot hit twice, but he wasn't able to get the left foot down. That's 14 points that were initially called touchdowns, and the points were removed. So we drove the ball up and down the field. I think that's all that matters. Yeah, we got to finish drives and score and convert, but I'm happy with their performance offensively. I'm not going to complain.
The only thing that was concerning, other than what you mentioned, penalties that hurt them, was that the Giants had 264 yards receiving, which is a lot. And I know that a lot of that was like they got lucky in a couple of deep plays. It happens from time to time. But is Minka not doing his job, or is he just there for the run? I thought that some of those plays he should have been there.
He was playing single high free safety, right? So he was and this is what they've been doing all season with him. They've used him really as like the back player that's there to avoid like those big plays. But what happens when you put him back there is that you don't use his skill set. You're not leveraging his skill set because he doesn't have a lot of opportunity to make plays, right? Last year he was like up on the line of scrimmage a lot. And because of that, I think he led the team in tackles. He was able to get, force some turnovers and stuff like that. He was all over the place, right? But now he's kind of playing back there. And they're, I think at one point, there's one reason I kind of like it. It's because it keeps him healthy. Keeps him out of like having to make a bunch of tackles and stuff like that. But then you don't give him an opportunity to kind of make plays. The Giants like hit on some deep passes. They caught us playing man. Daniel Jones made some great throws. I think that's a little bit concerning. The running game for the Giants, though, and some of the explosive plays that Tracy had running the ball is more concerning. Our defensive line did not show up. Like Hayward, Okinjobi, those guys did not play well at all. And the running lanes were huge. That has to get cleaned up for sure. Can't give up 45, 50 yard runs. Can't give up 145 yards rushing to a rookie. That shouldn't happen at all.
Yeah, I mean, giving 45 yards to somebody who first year in the league,
Yeah.
that's tough. That's why I was like, well, the Giants are moving the ball, but they're not scoring. So, yeah, I thought that the defense would be more dominant, and they were in the second half, obviously, because it was a different team in the second half. Russell Wilson was chucking it, and Pickens did his thing. I just want to see more of that complete game from Steelers. Before I
Finishing drives, you mean? When you say complete game, what do you mean?
like less penalties, score touchdowns on the first half. Like these field goals, I'm sorry, but that's not gonna cut in the playoff.
Yeah, not at all. And technically, we have scored touchdowns, but they've been called back because of penalties. So, however you want to look at it, same thing, I think we had a couple callback too when Justin Fields played. We just have had too many self-inflicted issues. You can argue even with Pickens, the one he caught that he didn't get 2 feet in bounds, he has to figure out how to get his other foot down. But I think those things are kind of fluky. I think when they play in a couple weeks, they got a bye week this week, but they are going to look, even better as Russell settles in, and they're going to start to score, 25, 26, 27, 30 points consistently. I have confidence in this offense now that I didn't have when Fields was playing.
Well, I think with Harris is coming around, he's putting up some numbers. I want to see Wilson come around because let's be honest, these aren't like top tier teams that the Steelers are facing. Top tier teams are coming up the division. Well, if again, that's if Cincy gets the mojo back. That's if the Browns get the mojo back, which I think that they should. Nick Chubb is back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I'll say this: you're right about the teams that they've placed in their record, but their defenses statistically have been good, right? So the Jets defense, we put up 30 against them. They are a good defense, right? The Giants run defense, not run defense, but their pass defense, they lead the league in sacks. So it's not like we're going against chumps. I think offensively, we're just hitting our groove. We're not making as many mistakes. We're doing better to protect the quarterback, and we're creating lanes finally for Najee, because Najee, it's never been him. It's always been him getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, having to drag 3 people just to get back to the line of scrimmage because the offensive line missed the block, or the other team flat out isn't respecting Fields to make a play downfield, so they're just loading the box and stacking the box. So they can't do that now with Russell Wilson. The dude throws downfield all the time. So when you have that combination of a quarterback who's able to make reads and throw the ball out in time and throw downfield, you're going to force teams to choose their, pick their poison. And they're basically sitting back there guessing, are they going to run? Are they going to pass? And then, if you guess wrong, Najee breaks out for a 10-yard run, or Russell throws it for a 30-yard pass down the sideline, something like that. So that's what a good offense should look like. We've done that the last couple of weeks. We just got to close out drives, finish drives a little bit better. And I think they'll do that after the bye week.
well, I'm looking at the schedule, and there's actually some offenses that in the Steelers schedule. So when they come back from the bye week, they face the Commander. Then they face a Raven. Browns and Bengals, we don't know what teams are going to show up. Then you got the Eagles. Then you got the Ravens again. Then you got the Chiefs. So, listen, I'm all for getting right against these terrible teams. and they are terrible teams. Talking about the Cowboys, talking about the Raiders, the Jets, who we know they're garbage. So this is where you try out different things. I like the fact that finally made the change to Wilson. I think that the bye week is going to help with him getting down more reps, getting more number one reps. So listen, I'm hanging on to. Hard Rock asked me this week if I want to cash out on the Steelers. They were like, oh, Steelers are in a division lead and they should win more than 8 games. You want to cash out? And I was like, no, I'm gonna stick with it. So
cash out, you get more, right? More than what you put in.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not. You don't get the full amount from if you actually win the bet. Right. But it is more than what you.
The odds are getting better, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So once Steelers win the division and they win that 9th game, everything else is just butter on a hot toast. So it is. And let's go right into week number 9. Excuse me. Let's start with the Thursday night game. Actually, are we skipping that one? No, we're not. So let's start with the Thursday night game. And these Thursday night games are not as bad as I figured that they were really bad a couple years ago. Houston Texans at New York Jets. Speaking of bad, for some reason the Jets are favored by 2 points. 42.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's your prediction?
I'm taking Houston. I know they lost Diggs, and I know the offense still has some work to do. But like we talked about, I think the Jets are dysfunctional. I think they're heading the wrong direction. And Houston, if they're going to fix things, it needs to start now. They need to. I think they're the best team in that division. They need to start playing like it, and I think it needs to start here this week.
It's kind of sad that the Thursday night game can't be flexed, because I think NFL, when they did the schedule, whatever algorithm they used, they were like, they're going to make sure that the New York Jets got enough primetime game.
No, they're expecting the Jets to be good.
And boy, were they wrong. Yes, I'm also taking the Texans. They're not hitting on all cylinders, but they're better than Jets. Sunday's matchup, Cowboys at Falcons. Falcons are favored by 3 points, over and under 51.5. Ron, what's your prediction?
Yeah, it's a tough one. But again, I went with my gut here. I think Cowboys, again, not having a running game. Atlanta playing at home. You're going to make enough plays on offense. The question is going to be Atlanta's defense. I think to a certain extent they've underperformed this season. They need to play better. They need to force Dak into a couple turnovers. I think they'll do that. And I think Atlanta will win, but I think it'll be a close game.
Yeah, I got Atlanta winning too. These are both bad defenses, but Cowboys defense is much, much worse. And like you mentioned, they don't have a running game. So what are you going to do? Just pass the whole game?
Yeah.
That's what they're Is Rico back now? I don't know. It doesn't really matter because they're not using them properly. So it's going to be 8. The next game, Raiders at Bengals. Bengals are favored by 8 points. 44.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's your prediction?
Yeah, give me the Bengals. Offensively, they have been fine. That's not the issue at all. It's been their defense. But the Raiders just don't have enough at all to compete with a lot of the teams in the NFL. So Cincinnati should win this easily.
Yeah, I got Cincy winning as well. This is a home game. I like the Raiders defense, believe it or not, but I just don't think their offense is any good at all.
Mhm.
At all. I like the defense though, but let's see. Okay. Next game is Chargers at Browns. The Chargers are favored by 2 points. 41.5 is over and under. Ron, who'd you go with?
Yeah, another tough game here. I went with Cleveland. I like Jameis Winston. I think he's going to make some plays. He should have been starting the entire season. Chubb is back. He's slowly getting healthy, and just used to, being on the field and stuff like that. So I think he'll play well. And honestly, the Chargers offensively, they don't scare me. They're missing receivers. They need some more help offensively. So I think Cleveland will have enough. I know Ward is out. I think he had another concussion, which is like his 6th concussion. He's a big part of their defense in the secondary, but I'll still go with Cleveland here.
Yeah, I went back and forth with this game because I like the Chargers defense. Their offense it's not scoring as much. I don't remember if that happened when John Harbaugh was at San Francisco. Jim Harbaugh, but I went with the Browns. Jameis Winston, I think he's going to have some picks on this game.
Jameis?
Yes, Jameis, sorry. But I still like the Cleveland to win the game. Colts at Vikings. Vikings are favored by 6. Over and under is 46.5. Ron, who'd you pick?
Yeah, I mentioned I have some upsets this week, right? I'm going with my gut. My gut tells me Flacco's a better quarterback than Richardson. And my gut tells me that he's going to find a way to get in the Colts to play to their potential and create a spark offensively. And Minnesota's I don't want to say they're reeling just yet, but I think they'll be a little shell-shocked in this game, and Colts are going to pull this one out.
Yeah, I was going back and forth on this one, but when I looked at the coaches, I liked the Minnesota coach more than Colts coach, even though he made a decision to sit down. This would be their 3rd loss in a row. And I don't think that they're that kind of team. I think that they'll bounce back, especially at home. So give me Minnesota. Next game, Commanders at Giants. Washington is favored by 3.5. 43.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's your prediction?
I'm going Washington in this game. Listen, the Giants, they don't play well at home. And Washington is just better offensively at this point, right? Daniels is the real deal. I think Washington is going to win this one pretty easily.
I also got Washington, but let's talk about the Hail Mary pass. Let's talk about the fact that the Bears were shut out in the first half. Then halfway through the 3rd quarter, they started playing better. There was a couple of dumb football decisions there by the Bears. But on the final play, did you think there was a chance that he was going to hit the Hail Mary?
Yeah. The way it was playing out, like he was able to run around, buy some time, gave the guys a chance to get downfield. I knew he had the arm for sure. I thought there was a chance. And, shame on Chicago, man. Like, that is unforgivable. I don't know if you saw the video, that one guy just talking in the middle of the play to the sideline, to the folks in the stands. and he was the one who was supposed to be boxing that player out. He didn't.
Oh yeah, I was reading about it. It was a rookie, Stevenson, I think is the last name. He was taunting the Washington Commanders crowd.
Yeah.
While not only was he taunting them on the final Hail Mary, but the play before, they had like a short 15-yard gain out of bounds. He was taunting. He wasn't even covering people. He was still taunting.
This is why I can't be coach, because had I been coach and that happened, like I would have just cut him like right as soon as he landed back in Chicago. I'll just say, that's it. I'm cutting you. You know,
and
because
I had to look it
send
up.
a message to the team that, listen, we're not like the old Chicago Bears. We're not putting up with that foolishness. Like, we're not playing well to our potential on either side of the ball. And that right there is unacceptable. Like, to make an idiotic like play and just be selfish is unacceptable. And I think they should have just cut him right then and there to send a message to the rest of the team. Like, that will not, you can play hard and make mistakes and grow, but just to have that sort of brain lapse is just not about winning football. That's just, that's losing mentality right there. And those are the players you don't want on your team.
A moment like that, you have to be able to chuck it as far as you did.
Well, let me ask you a question, Ron. Are you concerned about William?
No, not at all. Listen, he didn't play well at all. I didn't think Daniels played equally bad to me outside of his runs that he had.
Well, he had 328 yards.
Yeah, but take away the Hail Mary, look at his completion percentage, right? Factor in that he had a running game. Caleb did not have a running game to go along with what he's doing. I don't think Caleb played that much worse.
Wait, DeAndre Swift had 129 yards.
Did he have that much?
Yes.
It felt like he didn't do jack.
I mean, they outrushed the Commanders.
Let me pull up the stats.
196 to 168.
Yeah.
So there was a running game. He was averaging 7.2 yards a carry.
I mean, I wasn't impressed by either quarterback in this game, to be honest. And I'll admit, like, Daniels has outplayed Williams the entire season. I just don't think this was his best game at all. Like, 21 to 38. Yeah, you got 326, but 21 to 38. Is that the standard now? Like close to 50%, 55%, whatever that is. You gotta be a little bit more accurate than that. But you can't take away what he did with his legs. 8 for 52. That's just outstanding. So that's the part that Caleb doesn't quite have. Yeah, he can run the ball a little bit and scramble. That's not his. He's more like a Mahomes scrambler than a Lamar or Jaden scrambler. He's not gonna make those deep runs down the field, stuff like that. So
I just haven't seen him like go deep. I haven't seen a highlight of Williams going deep at all, and he has pretty good receivers, but he doesn't go deep. I don't know.
At some point, I remember DJ Moore got hurt at some point. I don't know what in the game that was. But like I said, I mean, he didn't play well. Caleb didn't play well. There's no other way of putting it. He has to play better. But, it's still his rookie year. They are still 4-3, right? 4 wins. Should be 5-3 if it wasn't for that Hail Mary and stupid play by their defensive back. I don't think, when you look back on the season, I think it's something to build on. I don't think they should be overly concerned with Williams' performance.
Well, they should have gotten as many victories now because their schedule gets super duper hard. Because they still haven't played any other division game. And then they play the 49ers and the Seahawks at the end of the season. We don't know what kind of Seahawks up. This is where things go sideways. They realize that Eberflus is not the coach that he thinks. So I do see him maybe, and we'll talk when we do our coaches list. And, I don't know. Do you think he's in the hot seat?
No, not at all. First year with his quarterback? No, not at all. Right now they're in the playoff hunt, so not yet.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at my list real quick. Yeah, I definitely have him on the hots. And we'll get to it eventually. Ron, the next game, Saints at Panthers. This is the poo game. But I think Carr should be back for this week, right?
I have no idea.
7 points is the New Orleans spread. 44.5 is the over and under. Ron, who'd you go with?
I went with Carolina, but that's with me assuming Carr wasn't playing. I still think Carolina. Listen, they got Bryce Young playing now. There's a lot that needs to improve with that Carolina team. They just traded Deontay too on top of it. But New Orleans has been awful, like awful. If Carr plays, I want to change it. If Carr plays, even New Orleans to win. If not, I want to take Carolina. That's just a gut.
Yeah, from everything I'm reading is that Carr is going to play for this game. It's activated.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that if he plays, they're going to score more points.
Mm-hmm.
And not for nothing, but Bryce Young hasn't made a leap to the point where you're like, oh, he's actually pretty good quarterback.
No, but I thought he played in a little bit that I watched. I thought he was better than what he had shown, which, again, is probably not saying that much, but that's what you have to hope for, is just some improvement from time to time, right? So he just needs to keep building on each week and just get better.
Yeah, I'm not putting my hat on Bryce Young yet. There's some flashes, like really, really tiny flashes, but they do need to bulk up, maybe add 20 pounds. The next game, the Bears at Cardinals. Cardinals are favored by 1 point. 44.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's the prediction?
Yeah, I went with the Cardinals, and it's not so much of lack of faith in Chicago, although I will admit it's waning a little bit. It's more so that the Cardinals are pretty damn good. Their coach is good. Kyler Murray obviously is good. Harrison Jr. is good. They're a much better team, I think, than we gave them credit at the beginning of the season. We probably only gave them 4 or 5 wins, if I remember correctly. Maybe 5 or 6, but here they are sitting in first place. Yeah, they're 4-4, but they can win that division potentially. They still got to fend off Seattle and San Francisco, but give me the Cardinals to win this one.
I went back and forth with this one. I don't know what Cardinals team is going to show up. So I went with Chicago, but because I really, really like Chicago's defense, I think they held Daniels in check for most of the game. I know Daniels wasn't 100%, but they did pretty good as far as holding him in check. And if Arizona, if you can contain Kyler Murray, I don't think that they're that good. If you let Kyler Murray just get out of the pocket, then you're gonna pay the price. So it just depends what kind of defense shows up. And I like the Bears' defense, not so much their offense, but I do like the defense. So I took the Bears this one. Next game, Lions at Packers. Detroit is favored by 3.5. 47.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's your prediction?
Yeah, it's gonna be a good game. I went with Green Bay because the fact that game is in Green Bay. I think Green Bay is a good team. I think Detroit's a great team too. But I got Green Bay pulling off the win here.
This is the other thing. Like if I look at the coaches, I think they might be about even. I look at the quarterbacks. I like Goff better. Love is not. It's not the Love from last year. He's not there yet. I don't know if he's kind of like not 100% or he's holding back. I don't know what it is, but that's why I like Detroit to win this one. I think they just have a better offense, even though isn't one of the receivers like suspended?
Detroit, yeah, Wade Williams, that dude has been a headache, man. Yeah, suspended for what is it this time? I think it was performance enhancing drugs this time around, but he also has
gun charge or something.
Yeah, so there weren't any charges. He had several guns apparently in his car, and for whatever reason they didn't arrest him. So they were investigating why they didn't arrest him. But that dude has been a headache to say the least. Unfortunately, so much talent. He's one of the players I was hoping the Steelers would trade for, but looking at it now, it's like that guy is going to be out the league pretty soon. So I'm glad we didn't trade for that guy.
Even with him not in the game, Amon St. Rod, Amon Brown, or St. Rod, what's his name now?
Armand St. Brown.
Thank you. Yes. I think if you've still got him on the team, you're going to. The next game, Rams at Seahawks. Rams are favored by 1 point. 47.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's your prediction?
Yeah, so I talked a lot earlier about the Rams and how, listen, they can score points. I think Seattle needs a bounce back game here. They got to start playing better. They need a win. I'm just going Seattle, and it's just got, especially since this game, Seattle, that's a huge home field advantage. I think that's one of the toughest stadiums to play in. They got to win that one. I think they will.
The Seahawks have lost 4 out of 5 games. I think we can say that they're reeling. I'm just not confident in Geno Smith as it used to be. And to lose to the Giants, they're not really, a great team. They make a lot of errors. And then, yes, you beat the Falcons. I don't know. It's, for me, I picked the Rams to win this one. And I think Metcalf is still out, right?
Yeah, he might be back, though, this week. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought that Mike Martindale would give them like that first year coach boost a la Dan Quinn in Washington, but it's not happening, or maybe already happened and now teams are catching up like, oh, this defense is not as stout as we thought that it would be. So give me the Rams to win this one. Jacksonville at Philadelphia. Philly's favored by 7.5. 45.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's your prediction?
Told you again, I had a lot of upsets this week, so this is another one. Big point spread. I don't care. I'm taking Jacksonville to win this one. I know Philly's 5-2 at this point, 5-3. I don't know what their record is, but I'm not a believer in Sirianni. I don't trust him. I don't trust Jacksonville's coach either, but I think Jacksonville at least looked pretty decent last week. I think they're just going to pull off an upset here. Primetime game. I think Lawrence is going to show up, and I think we're going to see an upset. That's just my gut.
I've been picking against Philadelphia because I don't like Sirianni. I don't like how the defense is shaping out to be. But they've already won 3 games in a row. They're 5-2. They beat 2 pretty good offenses. Well, I won, I guess, with the Bengals. The Giants are terrible at home, but I'm starting to believe in this Eagles team. I know the Sirianni's like self-sabotage, but I think Jalen Hurts is actually coming to his own. He has weapons now, and it's still, to me, maybe Derrick Henry, but Saquon Barkley is still the best running back available. Like, who would you pick as if you had to choose one running back?
Healthy?
Yes,
McCaffrey.
right now, with what you have.
So healthy right now in the entire league. It's probably either Barkley or Gibbs, maybe Montgomery, the two of those guys together. But yeah, Barkley, good running back. But
Yeah, it's a good running back, and if I'm looking at his stats right now, he has 786 yards rushing. He's averaging 6 yards a rush. It's like, you should be using him more. I don't understand what Nick Sirianni is doing or what the offense coordinator. Oh, Kellen Moore is the offensive coordinator. So I just want to see more. And I think that they finally figured out that, hey, we have an actual players to make this defense go. I don't know. I needless to say, I got the Philly winning over Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville is reeling. Pretty soon we're gonna see trades happening out of Jacksonville. I think there's one already happening, right? Isn't the Vikings interested in a left guard for Jacksonville?
the tackle, I think it was, that they sent over.
Yeah, so it's already happening. They're already waving the white flag. So I can see the Phillies just rolling. Okay, Monday night, one game run. The Bucks at the Chiefs. The KC's favored by 8.5 points. 45.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's your prediction?
I'm going with Kansas City. Tampa Bay has too many injuries. I doubt Evans plays. Godwin's already out for the year, right? I think it's the season that he's out for. So give me KC.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but KC is going to win this one. And I was thinking about, like, who are possible teams that KC can lose the rest of the year? And I only came up with two. Buffalo and the Steelers. So they could be, 16-2? And have the number one seed and have a bye week. And just saying that out loud, terrifying. Because why would you want to give this guy's rest? Andy Reid, this defense was a pretty good defense. I think the Bucks, they're gonna still chuck it. I think Mayfield's still gonna get his yards, but give me KC to win this one. I'm not sure if they win by the spread by 8.5, but they're gonna definitely. All right, Ron. Week number 9. Pittsburgh is off. They got a bye week. But we got New England at Tennessee. Tennessee's favored by 3 points. 37.5 is the over and under. Ron, what's your prediction?
Yeah. So again, I'm assuming Drake May plays here. I kind of touched on it earlier. I'm looking at an offensive performance by the Patriots, with them scoring 30 points, right? And May accounting for at least 3 of the touchdowns. So give me the Patriots 30-16. Tennessee's defense has been terrible. I know if you look at certain numbers, they might look better, but they get up like 25 plus points like the last 4 or 5 games or something. They do not play well on defense. I think Patriots, if May plays, will score a lot.
Yeah, I went into this game already thinking that Drake May is not going to play because I guess from what I was reading is that he wanted to come back into the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the third party neurologist who's like, no, you're not going back. So that kind of, I suspected that whoever the third party neurologist is going to be like, no, you got to enter concussion protocol. I'm hoping that he doesn't, but I got the New England winning 21-14. I think Brissett keeps it close because he's not going to wow you with points, right? It's just going to be like who has the least amount of mistakes. It's going to win. And, you know, as the week went on and Tuesday, Mayo had to walk back the whole like, oh, this team is soft. He had to walk it back. But he already said what he said. You know, when they asked players, hey, your coach called you soft, a lot of the players didn't take offense to it. They were like,
why would any player take offense to that?
Well, we heard Max Crosby take offense to it. But these players,
Max Crosby said it's insulting. Yes, I understand what he's saying.
and he said, what did he say? He said those are fighting words.
Fighting as you better get your behind out there and play hard.
No, we all know that's not what he meant.
No, I don't.
And I know Max Crosby is not exactly like the same person, so you really shouldn't base anything that he says. But when he says those are fighting words, he's not talking metaphorically. He's gonna fight you. And I think
I would first of all, I would never call Max Crosby soft because Max Crosby is not soft. He's the complete opposite of that. But I think when players heard that, they got the message. Listen, what we put out there isn't good enough. People are making business decisions when they should be out there giving it their all. They're making way too much money to sit there and wait for somebody else to make a play. I think they listened. I think it struck a nerve with them, and they showed up last week and played better. It still wasn't perfect, but it was better. And listen, that might be the spark that they needed. And, you know, I don't know if he may backtracked. I wouldn't have. I would have said they were soft and it's time for them to like show up.
Well, I guess he knew these players from when he was inside back as coach. He was like, he was liberated to say such things because he knew the players. The fact that Bill Belichick had to chime in and be like, no, these aren't soft players. It's just the way that they're being coached. Fine. You say what you say. But this is Mayo. This is this. He wants to call them soft and it works. Fine. Then next week, if they lose, he can call them soft. And then the week after that, they can win. They can go back and forth. I don't know how long he can use this stick. With this stick of like, oh, these players, I'm gonna call them soft. But they won, so it worked. That's all that matters. They won and that worked. But what I'm saying is that they should win against Tennessee. It's just gonna be a low scoring game because I don't see Drake May playing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Ron, what's your upset special?
Yeah, so I went with a number of upsets, or there's been a number of upsets with my choices already this week. But the one I'm looking at is like the Miami-Buffalo game. Buffalo is sitting on top of the world right now. They probably feel great with what they have. They still got to figure out how to get, what's the receiver, integrated into their offense a bit. The guy from Cleveland, Cooper. Their defense has been terrible. And guess what? Miami's coming in with Tua playing, back, Tyreek Hill, all the weapons they have. I have a feeling Miami's going to pull off the upset here. I'm not saying they're going to make a run to the playoffs or anything like that, but they looked different to me offensively last week than they had all season. I think that continues, and as a matter of fact, I think it gets better. I think they put up 33 points this week. I got them winning 33-31 in the nail biter, but I got Miami winning.
I do believe that the Buffalo Bills can score points because I'm looking at their schedule, and there've been some games where they score. No, there's been out of the 6 victories that they have, four of those games they scored 30 points. One game they scored 47 points. I just feel like their offense is clicking. Their running back is good. Josh Allen he's really, to be honest with you, he's having an MVP season.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, their defense probably needs a lot of work, but give me Buffalo this one. I picked them against the Seahawks. I picked them against Dolphins in week number 2 because I thought that they could win. Dolphins win, and they had Tua, right? Week 2 they had Tua was there. I don't like the Dolphins. My upset special, actually, I looked at it. I was actually going to go with the other game that you mentioned earlier, the New Orleans, Carolina, but then I found out that Carr is playing. So I switched my pick and I went with Denver at Baltimore, and I got Denver winning 21-17. And this, I have no data. I'm not going with my gut instinct. I just like Denver defense, and I think that the Baltimore defense is not that good. I mean, at least not dominant, and I think the Denver defense is at least a little bit dominant. I mean, are they right behind Kansas City in the standings? Let me just check, because I want to say that Denver is a team that people are sleeping on, right?
They are 5-3, so yeah, with 3 games behind right now. Listen, they offensively are starting to put points up now too, right? And their defense does have some decent players. Tough for me to say Baltimore's going to lose 2 games though in a row. And then, lose to Denver. Does Baltimore have holes? Yes. Is Denver going to score? Yes. But Baltimore, I think, offensively, now, especially with Deontay there, I assume he's going to play. It's early that they did the trade. He'll figure out how to run some plays. I think Baltimore's going to pull that one off, but I can see where you're going with that game with the upset.
Because I don't think that their issue is the offense with Baltimore. I think that, we mentioned it in the NFL news, like, maybe they're not getting the production they want out of the receivers, but it's their defense. If their defense was better, I don't think they would be behind the Patriots Steelers in the standings.
Yeah.
So, so I'm going to pick Denver. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but that's my upset special. Ron, who is in your power rank?
Yeah, it's not major changes. Just one new team in, which is Philly. But I got Detroit at 1. I think I had Kansas City there before, and I know Kansas City really didn't do anything to lose that spot. But I think I'm just impressed with how Detroit's playing, so I put them at number 1. I put Kansas City at number 2. Buffalo I got at the 3rd spot. Green Bay I got at number 4. Baltimore I dropped them to number 5. I'm trying to see where were they at last week. I had Baltimore at the 3rd spot last week, so I dropped them to 5. Minnesota, with their loss, I moved them down to 6. They were at 4 last week. Pittsburgh, I moved them up to number 7. I had them at number 9. Houston, I got at number 8. Washington at number 9. And Philly, moving in, like I said, into my top 10. They're at number 10. I moved Chicago out. They should have had the win against Washington, and they blew it at the end. Now, I don't think they're that far out of the top 10. I still think they have a decent team, but that loss is inexcusable to me. Should have won that one. So I moved Philadelphia in.
I don't even see Chicago in the top 20. I think they're in the bottom 10.
How can you say that though? Do you think they should have beaten Washington? Game?
No, because they played bad for 3 quarters.
But were they not winning the game with basically?
I mean, they should have scored. Technically, they should have scored 2 touchdowns because they decided to give the ball to a lineman. They just make a lot of dumb mistakes.
But regardless, my point is they almost beat Washington, right? They should have beat Washington. Would you not say they should have beat Washington?
But even
made dumb mistakes.
So even if they beat Washington, their record would be 5-2. It would be a fluffed up 5-2 record. Like this, not
fluffed up. You got Washington. You can go into your.
They beat bad teams. They beat bad teams.
But you got Washington at number 6.
So that doesn't redeem them the fact that they beat bad. They beat one good team.
But you can't say they're in the bottom 10 if they would have just closed it out and beat your top 10 team.
They're in the bottom of the division and they haven't even played any division games. 4 wins. They're going to be stuck at 4 wins for a while. I think they win next week because I think they play Arizona. And I picked them in. You have them losing. So I think that Chicago stays at 4 wins for a while. I don't think they're a good team. So, yeah, you can justify all you want, but I don't think they're.
I'm not trying to justify them.
You are. You're like, I put Chicago out, but they're not too far out. What?
They're not. You can't tell me they're that far out if they shouldn't be.
They are far
Washington,
out.
who you've had in your top 10 for 3 straight weeks.
When I look at the stats,
if they lost a game, forget about stats.
Forget about stats. Right? You told me last week that it doesn't matter who they beat, and then they end up losing, and then Williams has a terrible game,
and Daniels had a terrible game.
Yeah, but he was hurt. He had rib injury.
But take the excuses out. Both these teams didn't play well. Washington got the win on a Hail Mary at home, right? They're not that much better than.
And then you have Chicago, them losing against Arizona
because of their stupidity. So you can't say Washington's number 6, but Chicago's bottom 10. When Chicago should have won the game if it wasn't for ultimate stupidity at the end of the game.
So they're gonna go 4-4 according to you. They're gonna go 4-4, and you're still gonna have them in the top 15.
Absolutely. How many teams you think are gonna How many teams you think you're gonna have be 2 or 3 games over 500 this season?
How many teams?
Yeah, how many teams are you gonna have? You think are gonna have a 10-win, 11-win, 12-win season?
I mean,
5 maybe.
We already have one that's undefeated, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 teams that have 6 victories. So listen,
the point I'm making is
you need
a
wins.
lot of teams that are in the playoffs with 9 or 10 wins, right? So
yeah, but they're last in their division. They're not gonna win the division, and what are they fight? What are they gonna go in? They're gonna get in based on wild card, but it's not. You can't get in with just a victory. There's no way.
Right now in the NFC.
In the NFC, if I'm looking at it, so you got Washington is in, you got Detroit is in, possibly the Packers are in, you got the Falcons, which is a bad division. They're probably gonna win it, and then we still don't know about the NFC West. Everyone has 4 wins, so Everyone has the same amount of. Everyone has the same amount of wins as the Bears, but
one team for the NFC West, right?
Yeah.
Regardless, it's going to be one team. It has to be. Probably one team for the NFC South, right? And that, let's say it's Atlanta, they run away with it. Those are two guarantees, right? You got Detroit. You got Washington. Let's say Washington holds on and wins, right?
Yeah.
So now you got like two wild card teams, right? Two wild card teams. So you got Green Bay, which I don't see them completely failing. You got Philly at 5-2. Do you trust Philly to just keep rolling?
I trust Philly roster better than Chicago's roster. Maybe Nick Sirianni and Matt are two bumblehead coaches, but I trust the Eagles' defense more than I trust Chicago's
defense.
Yes.
Well, I mean, compared to, I don't trust either of their defense, to be quite honest with you. Chicago, I expected them to be a lot better. Eagles, I didn't expect anything from their defense. But my point is, I don't think Chicago's out of it, even with a fourth loss. There's still plenty of time left. I still think they're a top 15 team.
Not with the schedule ahead that they face.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see because
we'll find out about all these teams. Are they true, contenders, or a lot of these teams are they pretenders? We'll find out for sure.
Yeah, we'll find out for sure, but I don't think Chicago is in the mix. What I'm saying. So with my power rankings, I basically left it the same. The only thing is I took out Seattle and put in Buffalo. So I got Kansas City at number 1, Detroit, Buffalo, Green Bay, Houston, Washington, Pittsburgh, Philly, Baltimore, and Minnesota. I know they just lost, but I think that they'll bounce back. And now if they lose 3 in a row, then you can start hitting the panic button on Sam Darnold and saying it's over. But yeah, it's basically the same as yours, just put in different locations. But yeah, until someone knocks off Kansas City, to me, they're the number 1 on my list.
Yeah, I went back and forth with them. And this, again, I think I filled this out. I filled this out after the Uche trade, but Kansas City still needs to play better on the offensive side of the ball. That's the part that worries me. Now, if they keep winning and have home field advantage, man, it's going to be tough for any team to go into Kansas City in the playoffs and beat them. So, but listen, it's hard to argue against them being the number 1 team. They have been for years now. So I think they'll just get better. That's the scary thing with Kansas City. They're not playing that great now and they're still undefeated. They'll just get better. So
I agree. I agree 100%. Okay, Ron. So let's get to our coaches list. And these are all current coaches. And we actually, let me just say that we broke it down into 3 categories. We have who we believe is our top 10 coaches, who we think these coaches, they're not necessarily on the hot seat, but you kind of expect more before they move into the top tier, right? And then we have the bottom coaches, which, I don't think that they're necessarily in the hot seat, but they're definitely underachieving, right? So, Ron, who's on your list?
You want to go through all 30?
Let's do our
30.
top 10 first. Actually, yeah, let's do our top 10.
Yeah, and I think ours, for the most part, were the same as far as who's in our top 10. But I had Andy Reid 1. I had Kyle Shanahan 2. Tomlin 3. O'Connell 4. John Harbaugh at 5. Dan Campbell at 6. Matt LaFleur At 7, Jim Harbaugh, I don't know if you do have him in there. So I have him at 8. Raheem Morris, I put in at 9, and then Dan Quinn at 10.
You put Raheem at 9, but he hasn't done anything.
I think they're winning the division right now, aren't they?
A bad division.
Yeah, but they're still leading the division. And I'm looking at this as, this isn't so much about the team. It's when I did this, I'm just thinking, who is the best coaches in the league, regardless of team, right? So take the team out of it. Like, if you were to move these coaches around from different teams, put different rosters on them, who's able to get like the best out of all the players on their roster? I think these are the top 10 guys in the NFL.
Yeah, that's the only one that I wouldn't have in say, because I feel like he was in Tampa Bay. They didn't do much. They got rid of him. Now he's in Atlanta, and the defense is not that good. So it's like, well, you're a defensive coordinator. So what gives? You not have the roster because Atlanta invested in that roster. I think they gave like highest paid cornerback or safety. I don't know. To me, I think I have him in my expected moments. So other than that, same guys that you mentioned, Andy Reid, Tomlin, I have him as number 2. Harbaugh at 3. Kyle Shanahan at 4. Have Dan Quinn at 5. I have Jim Harbaugh 6. Dan Campbell. I never thought I'd say that, but I have Dan Campbell on my list. Matt LaFleur, Sean Payton, and Kevin O'Connell. So yeah, if I was...
Sean was the guy that you have in. And where did I have him? I had a number 14. Listen, I think he's a great coach, but I can't give him a pass for it not working out with Russell Wilson the last 2 years, for that monumental failure the last couple seasons. And I don't know if he clashed with Wilson and he was just trying to sabotage him or what the case might be. But he's not going to get a pass from me for that at all.
So you have personal reason.
No, I just don't think. I think he's a good coach, but he's a good coach that happened to have had Drew Brees as his quarterback, and that worked out well. But then he had Russell Wilson, another Hall of Famer. That was a monumental failure. So I don't know if
listen, Wilson had 2 good games with Steelers. Let's not forget the fact that he had Hackett as a coach, got away with murder, had his own office at the Denver Broncos facility. So basically, if you wanted to see Russell Wilson, you had to make a schedule. You couldn't just walk in and do whatever you want.
I don't believe that. Stop that nonsense.
Then he had Sean Payton.
Yes.
Sean Payton was like, no, you don't get to do whatever you want.
So you believe that foolishness?
No, I read about it. Why? It's not secondhand.
Because you read about it, that means it's true.
It's on paper. A journalist put it down.
Man, listen. Sabotage.
No.
The media, the national media.
Let's see how far he gets with the Steelers. Let's see how good he is with the Steelers.
Atrocious.
Again, the Steelers haven't played anyone yet. Let's see.
I'm not saying he's completely back to.
Okay, then let's not just give him a pass.
To Sean Payton, right? I'm not giving Sean Payton a pass. Russell Wilson is a Hall of Famer, whether you like it or not, right?
I'm not taking that title away. I'm just saying
why did it
both
work?
Sean Payton and Russell Wilson are Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. It didn't work out.
Okay, well,
I'm sorry.
That leaves me questioning: are you really in the top 10 coaches?
Well, read about it. Maybe you should read about it.
So you happen to have Breed.
Before you come up with conclusion on your own, read about how it was with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson when he was there.
But check your sources and read more than one material, because if you believe Sean Payton over Russell Wilson, then maybe you need to check what you're reading. It's
just the Denver Times. What do you mean? It's just a local newspaper. Local newspapers are
I've
going to tell
seen
you how
from
it is.
Sean Payton, even in his time for, when he was on the Saints, to have me have any trust for him whatsoever. That dude is a fraud.
So it's personal, but you
It's
said
not personal.
You just
he's
said
just
it's
a fraud.
personal.
He's a fraud. He's just a fraud. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying he's a terrible coach. I don't think he's a terrible. I think he's a very smart coach. I just don't think he gets the best out of all of his players. I think he happened to have benefit from Drew Brees being a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, and he got the best out of him. He rode that wave, and it's not to say he doesn't deserve opportunities to coach, but I just question how good of a coach he really is.
Well, you would rather take Raheem Morris than Sean Payton, so
absolutely.
I don't know your judgment on that. So who made your second tier list of coaches?
I got McDermott, and I question where to put him too, right? He's another coach who has had a lot of success, but never he hasn't gotten over the hump yet. So I question if he should be as high as 11, but I put him there. I put Gannon 12, D'Amico Ryans 13, McVay at 14. I put Sean Payton at 15, Mike McDonald 16, Mike McDaniel at 17, Todd Bowles at 18, and then Zach Taylor, who I'm losing a lot of confidence in, at number 19.
Yeah, I mean, I basically have the same guys as you, although I do have Raheem Morris because I still want him to show more than just winning. Sean McDermott, I mean, he's never made it to a Super Bowl. When you talk about riding someone's coattails, he's definitely riding Josh Allen. So he'll get as far as Josh Allen takes him.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Zach Taylor. He's riding Joe Burrows. Is he a good coach? I guess when he finally decides to play in the midseason, but just the fact that he's a slow starter hurts him. And then, I have Kevin Stefanski because he won Coach of the Year back to back. I don't know what's going on this season with him, basically saying that the issue is not Watson when it was plain to see that it was.
What was his excuse last year?
Last year, didn't he get Coach of the Year last year?
He did not.
Oh, that was D'Amico Ryans, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what his excuse was. Was there one?
That's what I want to know. What was the excuse? I'm not saying, again, he's not a good coach. I just think he's slightly overrated. That's my opinion of Stefanski. I think he's slightly...
Is it Coach of the Year by your peers or the journalists?
I think it's journalists.
I just think that, yes, he's very creative when it comes to offensive calling. But he's given that up this year. I guess, I don't know what the Browns organization was like. You're doing too much. We're going to hire somebody to actually run the plays. I don't know what's going on. I think that the fact that he got those Coach of the Year awards back to back kind of carried him. I don't know what's going on this year. Because if Winston takes over and they start winning like ball games, even though he basically traded half the team, half the good players anyway, I just don't know. But he's not on the hot seat yet, but Browns are a mess anyway, so we don't know. Todd Bowles, Nick Sirianni, who very easily could be in the hot seat, but he's winning games, so we're not gonna do that. Sean Payton, what? He's on the list twice. Mike McDonald, who we thought that he would be a better player, a better coach, first year coach. It's not there yet. And then I have Raheem Morris. So, kind of like your list, I'm gonna put Mike McDaniel over Sean. only because
You have him already, so someone else is missing. You have him down below.
I have yeah. So I'll fix it up who it is while you go over the bottom team.
Yeah, so bottom tier: Dennis Allen, Nick Sirianni, Ryan Daboll, Kevin Stefanski, Sean Statham, Antonio Pierce, Dave Canales, Doug Peterson, Mike McCarthy, Gerard Mayo, Brian Callahan, and Jeff Ulbrich.
Yeah, I don't. If any of these coaches in the hot seat.
No, I still think it's too early to tell. I mean, some might say Daboll's there, but I honestly don't think he's the problem. I think it's just married to the wrong quarterback situation.
I'm going to say this because basically the list that I have is identical to yours. I do have Kevin Stefanski up a little further, but coaches that I feel are in the hot seat. Doug Peterson, I feel like he's in the. Mike McCarthy, I feel like he's definitely in the hot seat. And, you know, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't keep Ulbrich just because he's interim coach. He's not a good coach. So even I don't see the Jets turning around this season at all. So I think he's in the hot seat. So those are the three coaches that I think are in the.
So no Pierce for you yet.
No Pierce because the Raiders owner keeps backing him publicly. I don't know if that's.
Well, that's how I feel about Dallas and Mike McCarthy. And, you know, it's not Mike McCarthy that said, hey, let's not go out and get a decent running back, you know, and not have a running game.
But we know that Jerry Jones, when he does interviews, he specifically tells the writer, journalist, whoever, don't ask me these questions. So I'm not, when it comes to Dallas, I just don't believe anything that comes out of it. Because he even wanted a journalist fired because he asked him a question. So I think they're very specific on what goes out there. And they kind of control things in Dallas, and I think it's just all like window dressing. Mike McCarthy. So, I'm looking at the list. Do you think Brian Daboll is in trouble?
No, I don't think so. I think, again, it's not so much him as it is the quarterback. And honestly, like, they may both fall on the sword for it at the end of the day. But, you know, I don't think it's the Daboll thing, to be honest with you.
So you think it's a front office or you think it's a roster?
I think it's both. I think it's the front office decision making at the most important position, which is the quarterback position.
Yeah, I just don't see any hope with that at all. But they have he was calling pretty good plays until that weird 2-point conversion.
Yeah. Here's the difference between him, for me, and Kevin Stefanski. Both are in the same situation with quarterbacks that, you know, aren't it, right? They're tied down to, but aren't the guys. Brian Daboll had no other option. Like, who the hell's behind, the Giants quarterback? Nobody. Stefanski has had people. They had Flacco, right? And they said, let's not keep him. They had Winston and said, no, we're not going to him. he's made that decision to be so freaking stubborn, right? Like, dude, just move on. Admit that it was an organizational mistake to get the quarterback.
No, he's not gonna. That's fireable offense.
No, it's not.
You can't admit that
It's
your GM
viable
messed
not
up.
to start the person you supposed to start, who was a better player in your team as a
You
coach.
can't do that, Ron. Be honest. You can't go against your boss and be like, "Yeah, my GM gave him a contract that shouldn't happen, so
That's
I'm
not what
going
I'm
to sit
saying.
him."
I'm saying your job as a head coach is to win games. So you get out in front of the media and say, I'm starting Jameis Winston. Deshaun Watson has not played well enough. I am not losing faith in Deshaun. I hope he can get stuff together, be better, but I need to win games. I'm starting Jameis Winston. End the conversation. If your owner doesn't like it, you tell your owner, you pay me to get you wins. If at the end of the season I don't get wins, then fire me. But you don't force me like Bill Parcells used to say, right? Don't you have me cooking? I can't, buy the ingredients, right? Don't force me to play with a guy that I don't think is capable of winning just because you made a decision not to, to sign him for that contract. You don't have to say that publicly, but you can say that privately. And I think publicly, you put the best guys that are out there, period.
No, I think that if you do that, you're on the unemployment line next. And he might.
I'm going to be on the unemployment line if the
No, I'm not comparing Cleveland organization to Pittsburgh organization. They totally run differently. I'm just saying that you have to have some kind of unity before the season starts. And if you don't have that unity, then there's no point. I feel like if you're gonna fire Stefanski, then you got to fire the GM. You got to fire everyone who had a say.
Yeah, I'm not saying he should be on the hot seat. I'm just saying, like, the way, and maybe it's not all on him, it's the front office or whatever, but the way they've handled the quarterback situation the last 2 years, I can't put you in the top 10, top 20. I think that's been one of the biggest failures in the NFL, period, over the last, 2-3 years. One of the biggest mismanagement of your roster. It was so obvious that Flacco was better that you had to cut him. That's terrible.
I think the Jets took that man.
Maybe, yeah.
It's no maybe. It is the Jets.
Yeah.
It is the Jets. They fired their head coach. They got Devontae Adams when what was the point of getting Devontae Adams when you're not that good? And they got rid of Hackett with another offensive coordinator who basically has no kind of experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I do agree that the last 2 or 3 years has been the Browns, but the Jets take the cake, which is good because the Browns are winning. Watson is not in the picture, and I think you will forget until he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So the Pittsburgh are off this week. New England, we don't know about Drake May. Are there any words to the fans out there? Not so much Steelers, but just the fans overall. Talking about week 9 now.
Listen, we are basically to our halfway point, so lots more to discuss next week. But, at this point, I think we're starting to at least see what teams got. I'll talk about the Patriots specifically. There's some hope out there. There's a glimmer of hope now coming off a win. If you can get May back and he continues to develop, I think you might have something for like the next couple of years. So, keep watching the Patriots, keep rooting for them. Don't be like Sarek and just give up and turn to the Celtics.
The Celtics are undefeated, by the way.
Oh my God.
4-0, baby. 4-0. Listen, I think they're going to get victory number 3 with the Titans, but that's it.
That's it for the season?
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that And I don't have any kind of like specific betting or like any futures about the Patriots not doing well this season. But when I look at the schedule, the games remaining on the schedule, other than the Titans, maybe they can beat the Colts, maybe, and that's a big maybe. But talking about the Bears, talking about the Rams, talking about Cardinals, Bills, Chargers, then the Bills again. I mean, listen, 5 wins it's hard. When your team is not good. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think after Tennessee, even with Drake May, because he's, he has a talent, but without a receiver, without an offensive line, without a true running back, with Stevenson, he has fumbleitis. He didn't fumble the last 2 games, which is good. But what it take? It took for him to be like benched for Gibson. Gibson is not even that good. So, yes, there's hope for next week, but after that, you're on your own. You're on your own. And I like to believe that I have a lot of Patriot fans listening to the podcast. I just feel for them because a lot of them just have the Patriots. They're not as fortunate as I am, where I have the Celtics, the powerful, hopefully back-to-back champion Boston Celtics. So yeah, needs to say, this is going to be a rough rest of the week. But, we talked about how the underdogs are winning games now, so you never know. Never know. All right, well, with that said, we'll do week number 10. It'll be episode 106. So until next time, I say peace.
All right, that's it, guys. That's the end of the show. Thanks so much for all your support and listening today. If you got any questions, comments, feedback, feel free to email us at simsportsmedia@gmail.com. That's SYMSPORTSMEDIA@gmail.com. Peace.